Hello again, folks. This is Mike coming right back at you with yet another video on Foundations of Math 2. In this video, we are going to continue our discussion on many basic yet very important real-life applications of math. This one is arguably the most important real-life application of math, and this has to do with budgeting, planning out your income versus planning out your costs every month, and sort of how to plan and calculate those costs that occur every month, as well as things that are paid at various points throughout the year. So as I said, this is arguably the most important real-life application of math. It's very, very basic. There's no complex calculations happening here, but it's very simple. You have to bring in more money, or technically you have to, at the least, bring in the same amount of money that you spend every month. Obviously, you want to bring in more than what you spend every month. So the first step in all this is calculating your income. It could be monthly income, weekly income, yearly income, whatever. And this is the first step in beginning, or in allowing you to budget your money and calculate what your costs are and whether or not you'll have money left over at the end. When you calculate your income, you obviously want to work with your take-home pay, not your gross pay. You don't want to use gross pay because gross pay is not including the taxes being taken out. You want to use that take-home pay. That's how much money you get after all the taxes are taken out, after health insurance gets taken out of your check, if you have money taken out of your check for a retirement account of some sort, that's all taken out, and then after that, what you actually see inside of your savings account or your checking account or wherever, that is going to be your take-home pay. So a couple sample problems here that's going to, these will require a little bit of calculation here. Before we get into these problems, it's fairly standard that a month has 30 days in it. Yes, one month has 28. Yes, several months have 31. But for the most part, but 11 of our 12 months contain 30 or 31 days. And it's better to go with 30 because when you are trying to budget your money and you're trying to calculate, okay, how much can I spend and still have money left over? If there's a way that you're going to err with calculating your income, you want to err on the side of having or thinking you have a little bit less income than what you actually have. And as we get later on in this video, I will tell you why you want to err on that side, if you don't already know. This is probably something that many of us do now, and this is nothing new to you whatsoever. But for those of you who maybe don't know why, I will explain why later on in this video. So here, your paycheck you receive every 2 weeks brings in $1,700. This is after taxes. What is your average monthly income going to be? So every 2 weeks or every 14 days, you're going to get a check for $1,700. So if I do a simple quotient, I can figure out what does that sort of turn into as far as how much I make per day. So if I get $1,700 in 14 days, if I do 1,700 divided by 14, that will tell me how much I get in 1 day. And if you go into your calculator, this is not the nicest calculation. If you do 1,700 divided by 14, and this is all in terms of dollars here, so we're going to round to 2 decimal places here. Comes out to be $121.43 per day. So that is the average of how much I make every day during the month. So if this is how much I make per day, and I know that I have 30 days in my month, I can do $121.43 per day times my 30 days. And when you do this calculation, 121.43 times 30, you get $3,642.90. So this is what our calculation is telling us. The average monthly income is going to be just over $3,600. Now, just for the record, when we rounded to 121.43, it was actually 121.428. So this was rounding up our value by a couple tenths of a cent. So technically this value here is slightly larger than what you would actually have. So maybe you, for the purposes of trying to budget your money, maybe you round this down to just say $3,640. Let's say that correctly. $3,640. Let's say you use that as your magic number for how much money you bring in every month. And once again, that just goes back to if you're going to err on calculating your monthly income, err on the side of it being a little less. Another sample problem here. You work 30 hours per week and you bring home a weekly check of $550. What would your monthly income be if you worked 40 hours per week? So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated. We're going to have to do a few calculations in here. We know that working 30 hours per week, I get a check for $550. I can use that information to figure out what I make per hour. So if I do 550 divided by 30, $550 per week divided by 30 hours per week, and I do 550 divided by 30, that is going to give me approximately $18.33 per hour. That's basically how much I make every hour that I work at this place. So now, the question wants to know, what would my monthly income be if I worked 40 hours per week? I'm going to take my wage per hour. I'm going to multiply it by 40 so that I know how much I'd make in a week if I worked 40 hours per week. So I'm going to do that 18.33 times 40, and 18.33 times 40 is going to give me $733.20. Okay, good. That's how much I make per week. But now we want monthly income. Obviously, a week is 7 days. Monthly income, we're working with 30 days per month. 7 doesn't nicely go into 30. So now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take my weekly paycheck at 40 hours per week and divide that by 7 to figure out how much I make per day. So if I do $733.20 divided by 7, and again rounding to 2 decimal places, you get 104.74285 blah blah blah. But rounded to 2 decimal places, that's just 104.74. So this is how much I make each day. Now take this number, multiply it by my 30 days in my month. And if I do 104.74 times 30, I'm using my calculator as well, just because these are not nice numbers that we're trying to work with here. We get $3,142.20. Somewhere near there. So our calculation is saying $3,142.20. Again, maybe just round down to say $3,140. It gives you sort of a nice number to work with. And again, it's erring just that little bit on the side of lower. So that's just a couple sample problems as to how you would calculate your monthly income. Now we're going to take a look at your monthly costs or your expenses. Expenses come in various forms. They can be fixed, a fixed expense or a fixed cost just simply means that you pay the same quantity of money each month. This applies to things like rent, perhaps utilities, how much you pay every month for your cell phone plan, things like that. And then there are variable costs, things that change each month, like maybe food, clothing, just other real world things that happen. And then there's things that we could consider luxuries. Those little purchases that we tend to make more often than we should. Like we go every morning and we go to the local coffee shop and we pick up our cup of coffee, or we go to the vending machine and work and we get a snack every day or something like that. So here's a couple sample problems looking at these expenses and calculating expenses and things like that. So suppose you spend $4.59 on a Starbucks coffee every day. What amount would you be spending on coffee each month? So when it comes to looking at your expenses, we said that when working with our monthly income, if you're going to err somewhere on calculating your monthly income, you want to err on the side of having a little bit less. If you're going to err in your calculation of your costs, you want to err on having a little bit more, or planning on having a little bit more in terms of your costs. So here we spend $4.59 every day on coffee from Starbucks. As we said, we typically work with 30 days per month, but for the sake of costs, let's do 31 days. Let's up those costs just a little bit. We know that the maximum number of days in a month is 31 days. Some months have 30. One has 28. But realistically, for this problem that we're solving here, let's go with 31 days. On Connect Math, they may tell you to use 30. If they tell you that, do so. Otherwise, let's go with 31 here. So $4.59 times 31 days. If you do that calculation, 4.59 times 31, you get $142.29. Just for the record, if you did it with 30, you would get $137.70. But at least you can get some kind of sense as to how much money are you spending every month on coffee. And even from here, you could take each of these numbers and say you round it up to the nearest, I don't know, say $5. So if you did the calculation with 31 days, maybe when you plan your budgeting, you say, okay, $145 on coffee. Let's face it, there's probably been a time or two where we got a slightly larger coffee or we got something else with it, and we spent a little bit more than just what we did for coffee. And then you look at these calculations and you say, oh God, I spent that much on coffee, holy cow. But this is just a very, very realistic type of sample problem here where we use very, very basic math, but very important math skills to help us figure out what we're spending and what we have to save here. So these types of costs, things that are fixed, things that are variable, luxuries, these are things you can calculate each month, or the things that naturally get billed every month, like your rent, your utilities, your cell phone plan, your monthly food, clothing, whatever. Some expenses don't get paid every month. Some of them get paid every, say, 3 months or 6 months, or even just like every year. Just as a couple quick samples, your car insurance, very common to pay that every 6 months. Homeowners insurance, very common to pay that every 6 months. Some places do it every year. Property taxes, that gets billed every year. So how do we factor in those costs into our budget that we do each month? Well, it's very simple. All we do is we take that cost that we have that occurs, say, every 3 months or 6 months or every year, and we divide it by the number of months over which we wait to pay off that cost. This is known as prorating the expense. So what I mean here by saying dividing the payment cost by the number of months that we pay it in, say you have your car insurance bill that comes in and you pay it off every 6 months. How do you sort of calculate into your monthly budget the cost for the car insurance. You say, okay, take my car insurance bill, which let's say for the sake of nice numbers is $600. I pay that every 6 months. So take that 600, divide it by 6, and obviously I get a nice value of $100. So $100 is what I should be planning into my monthly budget each month for my car insurance. And that's what we mean by prorating it. So here, as a sample problem, your semi-annual every 6 months. Car insurance is $750, and your semi-annual home insurance is $965. How much money should you be budgeting each month for these two insurances? So there's the car insurance, here's the home insurance. Both these things are paid every 6 months. That's what semi-annual means. So $750 on the car every 6 months divided by 6 months. And then homeowners is going to be $965 divided by 6. 750 divided by 6 is a nice number. That's $125. 965 divided by 6 is going to be a little bit nastier. You get $160.83 when you round it to 2 decimal places. Now, when you do this calculation, you actually get 0.8333333. So maybe for the sake of having a nice number and saying that we want to budget a little bit more in our costs versus what we actually calculate them to be, maybe we say for a nice value, $165. Just working with nice values here. So if I add these things up, I'm going to take the sum of what I actually calculated here. So if I do $125 plus $160.83, I'm going to get $285.83. If I worked with a slightly larger value for my home, then that would be 125 plus 165, which is 290. So there we go. Just a quick sample problem on how do we prorate costs that come up only a certain number of times per year, not every month. As I said, every 3 months, every 6 months, or once per year. If my annual homeowner's insurance was $965, I'd be taking that $965 and I would be dividing it by 12. Because $965 per year, or $965 for 12 months in the year, you would get your monthly cost for that homeowner's insurance, and that would be exactly half of this guy here. But now, before we get on to our last problem, which is a very, very realistic, real-life type case where you know what your costs are, and you have to figure out how much you would have to make. I want to get into why I said what I said as far as how we plan our income versus plan our costs. I said if you're going to err on the side of calculating your monthly income, err on the side of less income. If you're going to err in the calculation of your monthly costs, err on the side of more cost. The reason you do it that way is because you're sort of planning for the worst possible case. The worst possible case is having a little bit less income than what you calculate and having a little bit more in terms of costs than what you thought you had. So if you just go based off of what you calculate and these things happen, then you're actually going to have less money left over at the end of the month, or you may even be losing some. But if you knock a few bucks off of your monthly income and you add a few bucks onto your monthly cost, worst possible case, if you do get more costs than what you thought and you do get less income than what you thought, having mentally reduced the income and mentally upped your costs, then you would actually be planning on saving or having the same amount of money at the end of each month than as if you didn't do that. Best case is you calculate your monthly income and you get that same quantity of monthly income and you plan, or I should say you calculate your monthly costs, and those are indeed your true monthly costs. Well, if mentally you're thinking that you are going to get less in and have to pay out more than what you actually had to, then in your mind you are getting a smaller amount of money at the end of each month than what you actually are. Best case, you would actually wind up with more money than what you thought you were planning on having. So always err on the side of less money coming in and more money going out, for the simple purpose of worst case, what you're planning will match up with what happens and you'll be good. Best case, you're going to get more money and or save more money at the end of each month than what you thought you were going to. So here's our very realistic problem here. It's fairly easy to calculate what your expenses are going to be for each month, or in the case of homeowners insurance and car insurance, given the problem we just solved, it's pretty easy to calculate those. So your expenses are as listed below here. All of these costs are monthly except for the car insurance and the homeowners insurance, which are listed as either annual or semi-annual. How much monthly income do you need to save $400 after paying off your monthly expenses? So it's pretty straightforward to, as I said, figure out what your monthly costs are going to be. Once you start getting in the habit of making those monthly payments and paying these things each month, you can sort of quickly get into that habit here. So we have rent, gas, utilities, student loans, car payment, cell phone, car insurance, and homeowners insurance. For the purposes of this problem, we are assuming that you are in a situation where you rent an apartment, but you also own a house. Maybe you are, maybe you have a house somewhere outside of where you live for, say, the summer or something like that. and you and where you live right now, you just rent that every single month. So this is a somewhat realistic problem here. But okay, let's figure out what these total monthly costs are going to be. These 6 values here, those are already given to us as monthly. That's good. We're just gonna have to add those things up. The homeowner's insurance and the car insurance, these are annual and semi-annual respectively. We need to prorate these things so we can get the monthly cost for them. So for the homeowner's insurance, I'm going to take that $1,900 and I'm going to divide it by obviously 12 months per year. So divide by 12. And if you do 1,900 divided by 12, you are going to come up with $158.33. For now, we'll go with the actual values that we calculate. The car insurance, $560. This is every 6 months. And if you do 560 divided by 6, that's going to give you $93.33. So I have my prorated costs for my homeowner's insurance and my car insurance. I have my other 6 costs here. So I'm going to add these things up. So 158.33 plus 93.33 plus my rent of 800, my car payment of 360, my cell phone payment of 37, my gas of 87, my utilities of 140, and my student loan debt of 208. Doing some nice summations in our calculator here, we are going to get $1,883.66. And these are my monthly expenses. These are all my fixed costs, or perhaps my variable costs here, and then the prorated costs here as well to figure out how much we should be budgeting each month just for the homeowner's insurance and just for the car insurance. Well, the question says, how much monthly income do you need to save $400 after paying off your monthly costs? So my income, which I'll represent by this unknown quantity X, minus my monthly costs of $1,883.66 has to equal 400. So to solve for this X value, I'm going to add this $1,883.66 onto each side. And that's going to give me $2,283.66. So this is how much money I have to bring in after taxes and all that stuff. My take-home pay per month has to be $2,283.66 in order to be able to save, or in order to be able to save $400 after paying off all my monthly costs that are listed here. Now, certainly there are other things here that we could possibly have in here. We could possibly have the mortgage payment on the house, but let's assume the house is paid off. There could be food in here too, but let's assume that we were very nice to our neighbors and they purchased all of our food for us. So this is a fairly realistic type of problem here. It's very similar to what lots of people and lots of families do every single month, every year of their lives. They plan these things out. They budget their costs. They know how much money they have coming in, so that they know how to control their spending, or they know that they have to bring more money in somehow to pay off the things that they have to pay. So, as I said, arguably the most important yet basic real-life application of mathematics. This concludes our video on budgeting and doing these simple calculations for budgeting costs and budgeting how much money you're going to have coming in. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to reach out to me, guys. Emails, phone calls, paper airplanes from the other side of the world, whatever you have to do. Until the next video, take it easy, guys.